Great news. President Biden's doctors say he is healthy and fit for duty based on his physical. Because everyone who was unsure if he should run for president again was worried that he's not in the right physical shape. That was the big concern. I just hope he's able to walk in and out of the helicopters. Doctors declared US President Joe Biden, 80 years old, healthy and quote, fit for duty on Thursday after a physical examination that included removing a lesion from his chest and declaring him free of symptoms of long COVID after his bout last year with the virus. The president remains fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations, White House physician Kevin O'Connor said in a summary of the health exam. The exam was closely watched as Biden prepares for his expected run for a second term in 2024. The summary said Biden did not have any long COVID symptoms and his stiff gait has not worsened since his last exam in November 2021. Biden said his physical went well. Everything went really well, folks. Thank God for small favors, he told NBC News. Biden takes the statin Crestor to keep his cholesterol levels low, an anticoagulant in response to atrial fibrillation that remains asymptomatic, and medication to treat seasonal allergies and acid reflux. The summary said, the summary made no mention of whether Biden underwent any cognitive tests, sometimes given to people of his age. Maybe even should be given to people who often lose their train of thought and then say really random stuff and repeat themselves constantly and change tracks mid-sentence and listen folks, my leg here and the point is I love eating salad and let's go back to the Chinese balloons aren't for the faint of heart, friends. What? Biden is the oldest person to ever serve as US president, has waved off questions about his age, but polls indicate voters have concerns about his ability to serve for 4 more years if he wins in 24. Asked about the concerns over Biden's age, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who is paid to always say he's gonna be good, said, this is a president that works day in and day out, in a grueling fashion with a grueling schedule and delivers. Pretty much avoiding the question. About 3/4 of Americans, including more than half of Democrats and the vast majority of Republicans, obvi, say Biden is too old to work in government, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll conducted Feb 6 through 13. Most Democratic respondents said the president remains mentally sharp, but about half of them said he cannot handle the physical toll of the presidency. Biden does not drink alcohol or smoke tobacco and works out 5 times a week, the physical noted. Note, they're not ruling out marijuana, I'm kidding. Biden would be 86 by the end of a prospective second term, making him 13 years older than the average life expectancy of an American male, according to the 2020 US Center for Disease Control and Prevention data, a fact that really depressed me, and I started doing math about my own life when I read that. Biden said during a PBS interview last week that any Americans concerned about his age should, quote, watch me perform the duties of the presidency. I mean, we are, and that's sort of where the concerns are coming from, sir. They're not coming from nowhere. We're watching you. But I mean, you did pretty good at the State of the Union in the last 15 minutes, not in the first hour and a half when you were somehow misreading and adding things that made no sense during a speech you were reading. It was on a prompter and you were like, listen folks, here's the point about gargoyles. I'm like, that's not written there. Why are you adding that?
Trump used to have the same problem. Brian.
Yeah, I mean, look, it can go both ways. I mean, first of all, on one hand, I've sat with him, I've interviewed him and spoke with him for even longer than the interview lasted at that one specific instance. And he's sharp, that goes without saying. That wasn't any concern that I had. But on the other hand, you have someone who's in his 80s. It's a problem in our party all the way, from top to bottom. So yeah, I mean, look, in a perfect world, obviously you'd want someone who is young enough to be able to, I don't know, stay up late, but that's so much of our problem right now. So much of what we're focused on right now is just making sure that we can find somebody who is electable. It's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy that we have going on right now because the whole Biden's biggest advantage going into this into his presidency was that he was viewed as electable, and that made him electable because of the self-fulfilling prophecy. So I don't really know what the answer is here other than just to I don't really know what the answer is on this one. I really don't.
Yeah. I have a sense of the answer, and I think you guys are both right in your own ways. So first, Brian sat down with President Biden for an interview. You should check that out on his channel, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. Really interesting interview. So to me, the mental acuity of Biden versus Trump, I'll take Biden any day. I mean, Biden never claimed that he invented the word fake or that wind causes cancer, or never quite asked, hey, should we nuke a hurricane? Would that help the situation? So like for the right wing pretending, oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Biden's having mental issues. Dude, your guy was born with mental issues and it's only gotten worse, okay? On the other hand, the comedy of this physical, I get it. Like you want to tell the physical part, right? But of course Ben's right, that's not the main question. It's not like Fox News was attacking him on his acid reflux. And they were like, oh yeah, what is the state of Biden's acid reflux, huh? And they're like, oh yeah, got the acid reflux report right here, okay? Stiff gait, not a problem, okay? No, we're worried about mental acuity, of course. But guys, this is a third rail issue. I remember when we brought it up during the primaries and the world collapsed in on us. I mean, it wasn't just politicians, it was like Democrats, it was like reporters. You can't talk about that. I'm like, well, I think that's kind of our job, right? And now, by the way, none of them ever came back and said, yeah, you guys are right, he's got some issues. And we just don't know how much. And guys, look, my dad's 82, right? And he's a really smart guy, watches the show, really still reads the news, on his game, not on his game like he used to be though. And so that's just a fact of life. It happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. So this is picking people who are super old on both sides is not the best of ideas. And you shouldn't discriminate. Like, there's a difference between Bernie Sanders, who's still got a lot of fight in him, and I'm not picking him because he's a progressive, and Feinstein, who obviously has mental decline, right? There's differences, and you have to make your own judgment call on it. But the country wasn't waiting on bated breath to see what Biden's acid reflux was.
Right, and I think the answer, in my opinion, is even a little further than that. I think it's not just age related. I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm not gonna diagnose obviously anything officially, but I see a man that has memory lapses and confusion very often, not all the time. It's great that he can do interviews sometimes all the way through, great. These things come on slowly, but to expect him to be this sharp 5 years from now, when even 2 years ago in the Democratic debates, he was losing his place and not knowing what to say. And they're like, sir, you've got a whole minute left. He's like, that's fine, just go ahead and take it. And didn't know what to say, what to do. Was just recently asking for a dead woman to come up and speak or say hello when he was there honoring her. I mean, that's a little bit beyond being tired or going to bed early. I think that is a man that sometimes has moments where he does not know what he is saying and even goes off script weirdly when reading off a prompter. That is not great.
Quick, just tiny bit of correction there. He was trying to honor her in the midst of a different event, but it wasn't in her honor where he forgot that she had passed away.
So I have mental decline and I should no longer speak about, but here's the thing, folks, I don't know.
I don't know why that one was the funniest to me. He does do that, and he'll lean into it.
He does. Listen,
no joke,
folks.
no joke.
No joke about things that are not jokes. Possibly. Listen, we have to stop all of. We got to stop these Chinese balloons. No joke. Listen, there's a homeless problem in America. No joke, folks. Who's heard that and was like, love that one. As a joke in my stand-up act says, and I think this maybe fairly presents Biden's issue. Every time he speaks, all of us are thinking, finish the sentence, Joe. Which ironically is the same thing he's thinking every time he speaks.
Yeah.
Land that plane.
Okay, last thing for me. The answer is primaries. It doesn't hurt the party, it helps the party. The Republicans have vicious primaries. Primaries filled with dozens of candidates. By the way, think about it, guys. In 2016, Republicans have a very tumultuous primary with 17 candidates, constantly attack each other left and right, and people are like, they're dividing their party. The Democrats try to get the primary over as quickly as possible, have as little debates, etc. Who wins? The Republicans. In 2020, the Democrats have a very large primary filled with about 24, 27 candidates, and the Republicans don't have a primary because of the president is an incumbent. Who wins? The Democrats win. This idea that primaries hurt the candidates, it goes back to 1980 when Ted Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter. That's true, that one did hurt him. There's another one in 1780. What are we talking about? That was millions of years ago. The primaries now definitively help, but no one will ever say that to you. When Biden goes to run, they'll say you're gonna destroy the party if you try to run a real candidate against them.
Just quick point, who's in mental decline now? You just said 1700s was millions of years ago, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, but I got great gait.
In a scenario like this year, though, where it's pretty much accepted that Joe Biden will, if he does choose to run again, if he does announce his intention to run again, then there won't be any primary because no one's gonna primary him. No, we're not gonna see another Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden situation. So what happens in that instance?
Oh no, I don't agree with your assumption. I think there will be a primary. I think there should be a very wholesome primary, full-throated primary, and I would encourage as many people as possible to run, because if we don't have a primary, I think our chance of losing is much larger.
And
I don't imagine that we'll see. And look, I don't know. I mean, my prediction is as good as anybody's, but I don't anticipate that we would see anything like that heading into 2024. That's notwithstanding any of my own personal views on any of this. I just don't believe that we'll see any primary. I think that if Biden announces his intention to run for re-election, that the party, other candidates, that the party as a whole will kind of just coalesce around him. That's just what I expect to see in all honesty.
Okay, I'll do a semi-prediction here. Biden has never had a real debate in his life. He debated like Sarah Palin and weirdo maniac Donald Trump. It's all been handed to him on a silver platter. You get one smart debater against Joe Biden, then they're gonna have to carry him out on a stretcher. And I don't mean like literally.
He did debate Sanders a couple times.
Yeah, he did debate
Bernie Sanders a couple times.
Oh yeah, look, they did that. No, but that's a great point, Ben. So they did these big debates, obviously in the primaries in 2020, and Bernie Sanders had a strategy to challenge him on his policies that his team had worked on, and this was a big moment, and they handed it to him. He went out there, and he didn't do it because he couldn't attack his friend Joe Biden. So the only challenge he got in any of those debates was Kamala Harris going, "I was that girl on the bus." And what happened? Biden was like, oh. I mean, you can see it on tape, right? Democrats have this idea that you're not supposed to challenge one another, that that's some sort of cardinal sin, a capital crime. No, you're supposed to attack each other. And it's not gratuitous. You're not supposed to say they're ugly for no reason. No, you're supposed to say this policy is better than that policy. That policy sucks. And here's why it sucks, and here's how it hurts the American people. But the American media has trained Democrats, do not ever fight. Do not ever fight for your own positions, whether you're in a primary or in a general election. And that's why they lose.
Right, and look, by no means am I rooting against Biden if he's the nominee. Obviously, I got to advise the Biden campaign on his debate strategy for his last debates with Trump. And I don't know, what advice they took or didn't take, but he came out very strong in those debates, and that's when he did fight. That's when he was saying to Trump, "Shut up, man," to a sitting president. That's when he was coming out hard, and that's probably what pushed him over the edge and helped him win, I think. But I think it's also very hard to argue that the best candidate we can find is somebody who's in mental decline. That's insane. We're a country of 300 million people.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.